Don't tell me what your New Year's resolution is. Tell me the price you're willing to pay to make it happen.
Hey everybody, before we start this episode, a quick shout out to our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by the Perfect RIA. How could it not be brought to you by the Perfect RIA? But if you enjoy these episodes, if you think that Micah and I, or at least Micah, have some great advice to give, head over to our website, theperfectria.com, and download one of our free guides towards making your practice better. So it's not just the things you hear on the podcast, it's the things that you implement. And if you're saying, you know what I'd really like to get in a room with Matt and Micah. I'd really like to ask them my own questions. I'd like to be coached by them. Then send an email to lifestyle@theperfectria.com, and one of our great team members will reach out to you and tell you more about the program. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Perfect RIA podcast. I'm your co-host, Matthew Jarvis, and with me, as usual, the man, the myth, the legend, recorded live from Wasilla, Alaska, Micah Shalansky. Micah, how are you?
Oh, Jarvis, it's another day in paradise. How could I possibly complain? At some point in time today, we will have daylight. Not quite sure when that is, but that will come in the future. So that's going to be fantastic. And then this podcast, we're kicking off into the new year. So I'm going to leave in a couple days, headed to Maui for some R&R time. And then really excited to kind of reset and set the pace for this next year in 2024. And we got some things that are kind of in the progress and things that are coming down the pike. And I'm really excited about that and excited with a lot of advisors that we're chatting with and all the cool things that they have going on as well.
Yeah, there really are a lot of cool things. Of course, I'm convinced that this is the year that AI will replace all financial advisors. I feel like we've talked about it long enough. As well will Bitcoin replace the US dollar and robo-advisors. Oh, wait, no, none of that stuff is going to happen. Come on, guys.
I was like, wait, was this April 1st? What was the air date of this?
Which episode are we airing today? Which episode? But joking aside, right, a new year is always a great time. I mean, all year is a great time to set New Year's resolutions, new goals, reinvent yourself. But the New Year always kind of has that tradition, right, of, hey, it's a new year, it's a new me. And Mike, I remember a lot of years in my career setting really ambitious New Year's resolutions, right? Ambitious on the borderline of hallucinations, of insanity, of delusions, right? Like, hey, we've only ever brought in $2 million a year of new assets. This year we'll bring in $50 million. $50
million, because I really want it.
Yeah, I really want it, but I'm not going to do anything different this year. So I'm going to want it really badly, and it's going to happen.
That's really the key thing, right? This isn't about want, it's about work. Jarvis, we saw this really cool boxing. We were at a boxing gym the other day, you and I, and we saw this really cool sweater. We totally got to get these made up, sweatshirt, and it was outwork me. I dare you.
I dare you,
right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's really what this comes down to. Are you willing to outwork your former self? That's the question, right? It's not about trying to outwork Jarvis and I or somebody else. It's your former self. That's who you're competing against. If you're doing the same level of work you were doing last year, you will get the same results that you got last year. So what are you willing to outwork in some component? I'm not talking working 80, 90 hours a week, but you're going to have to do something different in order to get different results. Now, if you're happy with the same results, well, then keep doing the same thing. If you want something different, you got to do it different. Now, Jarvis, you and I, when we're meeting with clients, I know one of the things that I say so often, right, is with my clients, especially when we need to make changes to get them on the right financial track, is saying, look, I want sticky changes, right? I want little changes that you're going to do that are going to stick with you. I don't want massive changes that you're going to do, because it's like a diet or a new workout program. You do this massive overhauls, a New Year's resolution. You do it for 12 days, if that, then you drop it and you never pick it up again. Well, that was completely worthless. So I want sticky, doable changes throughout the year. And with advisors as well, that's what I'm going for when we're doing our coaching, is sticky changes that make massive differences over 12 months.
Yeah, and because if we set too big of goals or non-sticky changes, right, what we risk is that we'll burn out on those, right? So I say, all right, It's a new year. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call 100 centers of influence every single week. Every single week I'm going to call 100. Now, never mind the logistics of how I'll actually do that. So the first week I'll probably get 12. I'll feel pretty demoralized. The next week I'll get 6. The third week I'll quit altogether, right?
Yep.
And so not only have you not accomplished your goal, you've actually cut your legs. Like, man, I never accomplished any of my goals. I'll never succeed in this industry, et cetera. So, but if we look and we say, what's our baseline, right? Oh, well, in the past, I've called 1 a month. Okay, well, can I get up to 1 a week? And then I can ramp up from there. Micah, this is also true if there are common objections you hear from clients. I know we're bouncing around a little bit. Well, I hope clients don't ask me, and I joked about this in the intro, about crypto or the elections or market volatility or whatever the case may be. That's another place where you're saying, man, I just hope I don't get that question. That's not going to help you. If you say, well, I'm going to ask every advisor I respect, not everyone I meet, everyone I respect, hey, how do you answer that question? that's going to help me make progress. I love the idea of sticky changes, not just big dreams.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, this is such a confidence play. The reason you get questions in areas that you're not confident is clients consciously or subconsciously, probably subconsciously, detect some area that you're not congruent, and they're like, whoa, I'm about to give this guy my entire life savings. I better press into this a little bit and see if this is the right statement. And that's where they're kind of pressing, is because you lack confidence in those areas. Now, not every area a client asks a question you lack confidence, but if you're getting kind of that same theme and you're dreading these questions, that's because, Jarvis, to your point, you lack confidence in your answer. So great, let's go talk to the advisors you respect. How do they answer this question? How do you embody that? How do you make that yours? And that way you can approach the situation with tons of confidence.
You're kind of getting back to the goal side, Mike, and you mentioned this in the intro quote. Like, hey, I don't necessarily need to hear about your goals. I need to hear about the price that you're willing to pay. So recently, an advisor shared with me that he is looking to bring on $100 million in new assets this year. That's an incredible goal. Now, me being me, I immediately pulled his ADV. I saw he has 20 million of assets currently, which, by the way, like, I remember being at 20 million of assets. That's a phenomenal accomplishment. Congratulations. You're not going to any kind of realm of reality go from 20 million to 100 million. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible. I've never seen it done, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. But what he didn't post, and this is where people get wrong, and we'll talk about extreme accountability, is there was no post about what we were going to do. What price am I willing to pay? So if you say, hey, I've got to get to $100 million, you better be willing to pay a damn high price. The price of 100 million in new assets is a big price, not impossible, but big.
Yeah, and so this is something that we want to check on. We're not trying to rain on your parade. Some people we are, but most people we're not. But it's really just, hey, let's have this honest conversation about this, right? Because we want to set you up for success in this next year and not setting this up to shoot yourself in the foot. So if you're at 20 million in assets and you said, hey, I'm going to bring in 100 million this next year, boy, I'd hit the pause button and re-look at that and say, all right, do you have a proven record of success that you can follow that's going to go from 20 million to 100 million? Now, you could go look at it and say, oh my gosh, look at Fisher Investments. They do over 100 million every single year. Should be a piece of cake. Do you have the same machine set up that Fisher Investment does? No. Okay, so probably that same system's not going to work for you because you don't have it set up. So where's something that you can track and that you can do? And Jarvis, the cool part about our business versus like a commission side business or insurance salesman's or anything else like this is that we don't reset at zero every single year, which is super cool, right? And so we get to build on our success and we get to keep that success in our clients going as long as our clients stay with us. So this is one of those things, you don't got to go from 0 to 100 million in a year, as cool as that sounds. You need to have a trajectory of success that you're continually building, and you're building an effective and efficient machine to deliver massive value to bring on more and more clients.
Yeah, so let's talk about this price in a little bit more detail, right? Because I think back to a younger me, like, Mike, I'm willing to pay the price. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, right? So what specifically are examples, right? One would be a literal price, right? How much dollars and cents am I willing to invest in professional development, not burning money at the altar of social media, right? Or at Facebook ads or something like that. But how much am I willing to invest in professional development by people that have already been there? Like, that's one example of a price to pay.
So I was talking with an advisor, and actually a couple of them, and one of them was like, hey, I want to make $1 million a year, blah, blah, blah. I'm just so excited. And the other one was like, look, I don't. Right, awesome. And the other one, who's just a couple years older, was like, you know what? I don't know if I'm willing to pay the price that it would take to make $1 million a year. And the other advisor who wants to make $1 million a year was like, no, it's going to be great, da-da-da. I said, fantastic. How much did you invest in your personal development? And there was a pause. And he's like, well, I really don't read books. I was like, okay, well, there's more than just books in personal development. So, you know, I was like, but you said you don't read many books. So how many books did you read? Okay, 2. Okay, great. What were they about? They were nothing about business. I was like, all right, well, we're not off to a great start. What other PD did you do? Professional development or personal development? And it was 0. And I was like, okay, so you're not willing to pay the price. So what are you going to do different this year? He's like, I'm going to work harder. I said, great, work harder. Tell me what that means. I'm going to deliver more value to clients. It's like, great, you're using buzzwords, right? Neat buzzwords, but I need actual action items at the end of this besides I'm going to deliver more value. Now, we love saying deliver massive value, right? So we strive to, but I got to be able to pull that hammer down, right? And know exactly what my massive value hammer is going to be in order to deliver that value to clients. I can't just talk about it all day long. So he says, great, I'm going to work harder. What exactly are you going to do that's going to move the needle?
Yeah, another way to look at this, Micah, would be, what are you willing to sacrifice to make this happen, right? Am I willing to sacrifice Netflix? Am I willing to sacrifice watching football games? Am I willing to sacrifice eating junk food? Am I willing to sacrifice drinking? Like, what are things I'm willing to give up?
We got to draw some lines, Jarvis. I mean, come on now. Good Catholics over here.
That's right. That's right. But you guys, right, all these things have a price. And everything we talk about on this podcast is always about being intentional. And again, let's use that book example. There are other ways. A good friend of mine, very successful entrepreneur, does not read really any books at all, like maybe 1 or 2 a year, but he consumes content endlessly through the form of podcasts and videos and studying that. He just learns differently. I'm usually like 4 or 5 books a month is kind of my genre. I always have 4 or 5 books at one time I'm reading. It's a faster pace than some people, slower than others. But back to this price to pay, like you and I recently both read Elon Musk's new biography, or the biography about Elon Musk. Yeah. And we both agreed, we were calling each other the whole time, like, this is not a price I'm willing to pay. The guy hasn't taken a vacation in his whole life. He routinely sleeps on the factory floor. He talks about waking up in the middle of the night, vomiting from the stress. That's not a price I'm willing to pay. There will never be a Jarvis rocket headed to Mars. I'm sorry. That's just not in the cards for me. That's not a price I want to pay.
It was really also important for me to share with my wife, because she was a little worried, like how far is this thing going? And kind of listen to Elon Musk book. And I had to pull her aside. It's like, hey, this isn't where I'm headed. And she's like, actually, thank you for sharing with me, because that's not kind of the life that I want. It's like, okay, great. So we got to kind of work together on that. But Jarvis, you're right. There's so many different ways to do things. And so what price am I willing to do? And it's easy to say, I'm going to cut family time. I'm going to do these other things, etc. Right? Well, I hear people say that, and
no, I hear it too, and I remember thinking it too. Hey, what I need to do is spend more time in the office. That's the price I need to pay, right?
Yes, I need to put my butt in that chair more, and more will come. And I've done that for years, and nothing happened because I actually had to take action with things. It wasn't a time; it was an energy and output. And at Jarvis, it was doing the things I was uncomfortable to do. If you want to know what success is, take the things that is very uncomfortable for you to do that you don't think matters, but other successful people are doing. Go do those uncomfortable things and success will come. So how are you going to push that envelope? What are you going to do in your PD time? How are you structuring time? How are you going to do that disciplined, right? You know what? Motivation comes and goes. I don't know about you, Jarvis, but I don't wake up every single day friggin' motivated to go and crush it. I wish I did, but I wake up every day to the same alarm Monday through Saturday, and I get my butt out of bed, and it says, great, this is my program for the day, and I do it. And I get my work done. And that discipline, then from the discipline comes motivation in order for me to be successful at certain things. So what's the price you're willing to pay? I'm not sleeping in till 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock, right? My day is starting way earlier than that because I need to get up and conquer in order to stay ahead of it. That's a price I'm willing to pay. What are you willing to pay?
Yeah, Micah, that totally makes sense. And this ties, I feel like we're jumping around just a little bit, but there's been some criticisms recently of the sledgehammer of value. Now, we take it as compliments. But there has been several... Yeah, the sledgehammer of value. You can find the post of Micah carrying around the sledgehammer of value. There's people that confuse volume with value. Now, this is specifically talking to deliverables to client, right? So they're saying, hey, you're beating people up with a sledgehammer of value. Now, really what they're doing is sucker punching people with volume, right? But this is back to this time in the office. So I'm paying the price. I'm in the office 60 hours a week. I think you're not. I think you're lying to yourself about that. You're playing office, right? It's like giving a client a 500-page financial plan. That is not value. You being in the office 60 hours. Now, the converse is also there, right? If you give clients zero value, or if you're 0 hours in the office, you're also not going to make. I run into advisors all the time, Micah. They say, Jarvis, my practice is just like yours. And I say, oh, you're doing 7 figures. They say, well, no, I'm not doing that. You have a team that supports you in delivering excellence. Well, I'm not doing that either. And I start listening. No, I'm not doing any of this. What I am doing is I don't hardly ever go to the office. Oh, you missed some piece in here, my friend. You missed some piece.
Yeah. It's like you have a 1,000 piece puzzle, and you have one piece of it. You're like, it's the same. Nope, it's not the same. You got to put all those 1,000 pieces together in a pretty good working order to make this all come in. So, Jarvis, one of the things into this next year, right? And again, going back to that sticky changes, as you listen to this podcast or anyone else's pod, and you start hearing these good ideas, right? It needs to go on kind of a good idea board, and you need to be really disciplined in cutting things, right? The secret to success, and a lot of people have talked about this, is saying no. Now, you got to learn what things to say no to and what things to say yes to, and that's a little bit more challenging. But you got to learn like all of the decisions that you have to make and all the things that you just need to cut out, which are volume and are not value. And the more volume I cut out and I just focus on the value, it's harder work. It is easier to generate more content to send to clients. It is really hard to cut that content and cut it down to a 1 to 2 page deliverable that really moves the needle with the client. I could think of my estate planning process, right, that we go through with clients. And I just had another client, they had a death in the family. So they reached out to me. They're like, hey, I want to revisit the estate planning stuff again. I said, not a problem. I was like, is this just a meeting you would like with myself, or you want the estate planning attorney? And he's an attorney as well. And his comment is like, no, Mike, I actually need to get some stuff done. So just you in the meeting would be great, and do the 1-page review of the estate planning document so we can make some decisions.
Yeah.
So here's an attorney, right? Been an attorney for 40 plus years. And he's like, no, I don't want the estate planning person in there. I want a 1 page of what's going on so we can make decisions and move forward. Now, that 1 page isn't easy to do because I got to take 100 pages of legal crap and cut out 99 of them in order to come up with this comprehensive 1-page summary. So again, volume would be throwing them the legal documents. Value is taking that extra time to distill it down to that 1 to 2 pages.
Yeah, and so I guess specific to that, Micah, if you are a listener here and you're saying, hey, what is a price I could pay? Great, a price you could pay would be to do a 1-page legal summary, not legal, estate planning summary for each of your clients. And you're saying, gosh, I really don't know how to do that. Perfect. Micah, you did an entire masterclass on that with an attorney, but that's going to take work. It's going to take time. Your first dozen or 2 dozen are going to be brutal, but that's a way to deliver value. I mean, imagine if you go to all your clients and say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, we've heard from a lot of our clients that stack of estate documents you have, your will and stuff, it's about as clear as mud. It's all written in Greek. And a lot of our clients asked us for a 1-page summary. And so we've created that with the help of some of the best financial planners in the country. We've created a 1-page summary. This is not a legal document, right? It's not, I'm not your attorney. I'm not giving you legal advice, but it's a 1-page review. I've created that for you. I'd love to sit down with you and review it. And then if you'd like, I'd be glad to sit down with your family, your beneficiaries, your attorney in fact, and review that all together so we're all on the same page. That is value, my friends. And that is where, as you're trying to say, boy, my goal is to get X million in new assets, this would get you a long ways because the value you deliver to clients, the expertise you develop, and the referrals that come from this are going to be a big springboard.
Yeah, absolutely huge. You know, one of the things I was doing this Christmas season is in my mini surges, I had a couple of family meetings, bringing in entire families together, right? A couple of clients have dementia. We're bringing in the family, letting them know how things are going to go down. And of course, it's like everything else. Everyone's like, oh, well, everything for dad. Make sure you take care of him. As soon as dad dies, where the hell's the money, right? That's what happens across the board. So really setting that framework on how we set things up to support dad in this process, but also making sure the beneficiaries are aware of how much money is being spent and they can see that depletion of assets. Now it's planned, right? We had set money aside just for this, but really planned for it. Otherwise, all they're going to see is dad had a couple million, a couple years later, he dies with a couple 100,000. Who the hell took the money? And if you haven't experienced that, you haven't been in the business that long. I would say, Jarvis, it's kind of a normal thing that comes up, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, tragically so. It is. And you just really can't ever err on the side of educating people too much. I mean, there's definitely, you can transition into volume, like let me send a 1,000-page document to every beneficiary. But yeah, you definitely want to keep people apprised of what's going on, especially when money's spending fast and there's family involved. But Micah, speaking of value, let's pause for just 1 second for some valuable information from our sponsors who help keep this podcast going for all of you. Hey everybody, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Belay. You know, the best part of having a virtual assistant from Belay is not the things that they get done that you were already going to do. That is valuable, by the way. It's that list of things that if we're being honest, you need to get to and you're just never going to get it done. Like that doctor's appointment you keep meaning to schedule, or the contractor you need to find for your house to fix that leaky thing, or the flowers you keep meaning to send to your wife. Those are all things that you can give your Belay virtual assistant so that they get done, because we know that, if we're being honest, they're probably not going to get done. Now, how are they going to get done? Because Belay finds virtual assistants, including my own virtual assistant, who are masters at working down task lists. They're masters at taking one step ahead of what you're already thinking, right? Reach out to Belay, text the letters RIA to 55123 to get a free copy of their ebook. More importantly, to get introduced to my good friend Teresa, who's going to see if you're a good fit for a virtual assistant. Not everyone is. And then find a virtual assistant who's perfectly matched to your needs. So text the letters RIA to 55123. And now back to the episode. All right, welcome back. Let's, Micah, transition a little bit. We've been talking about the price that you need to pay. We've been talking about what's not the price. But what do we do, Micah, when, and you and I have done this several times together, many times, when you know there's a thing that you need to do and you know what it is, no one's in debate of that, and in your heart of hearts, you know that it's not going to happen, because if it was going to happen, it would have already happened, right? This could be raising fees. This could be graduating clients. This could be restructuring your firm. There could be a lot of things, firing team members, all sorts of things.
And as we get into this, I'm going to do a mad shout out to one of our Invictus members. Now, you know who you are. He had a pretty hard extreme accountability, and he was getting close to bailing on it, and then manned up and it was able to commit to it. And once he got on the other side of it, he was like, thank you guys for this. This was great. This is exactly what I needed to do. But it takes a lot of courage and a lot of energy to do hard things. And Jarvis, that's what we call our extreme accountability, right? Now, extreme accountability, let's do some definitions because it's getting out there more in the industry, which is what we want. We want to transform the industry in so many ways, but it's kind of losing a little bit inside of there. So some people are like, my extreme accountability is to get $100 million in new assets this year. That's not extreme accountability. No. Right? Extreme accountability is, number one, something 100% inside of your control. That's the first thing with extreme accountability. Getting clients to transfer assets to me, that's not in my control. Now, having so many prospect meetings, right? Pulling so many levers, having value adds, asking for outside assets in every single conversation, right? Doing these things, those are things inside of my control that can lead to the 100 million. But extreme accountability, number one, is things that are only inside of my control. Mm-hmm. Number two, there are things that left to my own, I will not do. Because you've brought up several things in the past, like, hey, Micah, do you need to do X for extreme accountability? And I was like, actually, no, I've kind of mentally agreed to that. I've already got it in process. If you want extreme accountability around it, go for it, Jarvis. But I'm already doing it. And then you're like, well, no, if you're already doing it, let's move on to the next thing. So it needs to be something you're uncomfortable and you're not willing to kind of do unless someone is kind of watching you and helping you along. And then number three, it has to come with an extreme price that will cost you. This is the stick, right? You choose not to do it because it's a choice. If you choose not to do it, it's going to come at extreme penalty to you, not to your family.
Yeah, so let's remember on this penalty or this incentive, if we will, that in our minds, there's kind of this scale going on, right? And so let's use fee increase as an example, right? So in our mind, we have this fear that if I raise my fees, the boogeyman's going to come out from underneath my bed. All of my clients are going to leave. My family's going to leave. My practice is going to burn to the ground, right? So we have this imagined fear. The extreme accountability has to be big enough that we say, you know what, bring on the boogeyman. That's no big deal. So let's use some examples. In this particular advisor that you mentioned, again, we're not going to share his personal details, but it's one that we commonly do, which is, hey, great news. Any client for whom you're not willing to raise the fees, perfect, no worries, just graduate them as a client. So if you don't have enough respect for them to charge them a fee equivalent to your value, then that client gets graduated. Yeah. Well, now we've got this fear. Before I had the fear of the client's going to fire me if I raise the fees. Now I've got the reality of if I don't raise the fees, I'm going to fire the client. And so it tips the scale. Now, if you're listening to this and you think you guys are absolutely insane, please go back to the beginning of the episode where we say, hey, if you want a certain level of success, there's a price you have to pay. You have to be willing to jump off the cliff to get this destination.
Another good one is minimums, right? Revenue minimums or client minimums. We see a lot of advisors, which I get it, right? We want to help a ton of people, but there's some people that aren't our ideal client, and if we choose to go down that path and help them, we're not going to be growing our practice. So this is okay, great. Then you can only have ideal clients. So 5 exceptions per 100 is our rule. So there's your 5 exceptions. Outside of that, you can only have your clients that meet your minimums. So that means either change what your minimums are to reflect your real practice. That's fine, lower them, or more realistically, keep the minimums that you said are there, and you got to go through your practice and graduate those other clients. And this isn't hurting them, by the way. And this is what I want to push back on. By that logic, if you say, well, I can't graduate those clients because I'm hurting them, well, then any client you turn away, you're hurting. Any prospect you turn away, you're hurting. No, I am really good at one thing. Yes, I can do a lot of things, but I'm really good at one thing. And if I know if I focus on that one thing, I am going to crush it for these clients and do a fantastic job building value, helping them achieve their goals. And another client comes to me in a different way that, hey, you know what? I could do this, but it's not my daily routine. You know what? That's where I need to find another advisor. I need to send them to their greater good. So someone else that looks at that and says, hey, I do this every single day and I crush it. That's the advisor that they need.
Yeah, another great example. This is obviously a presidential election year. Oh, goody, goody, goody.
Yay.
One of the things we've done with advisors, let's say that you have a podcast, you're going to start some kind of content creation. Great. Each week that you don't publish content, never mind the quality, each week that you don't publish content, then it's $1,000 check to your least favorite candidate for president, along with a note saying, thank you so much, dear sir, for your service to our country. This is the first of many contributions. Send me a yard sign for my front yard, right? And it needs to be, now, some people are indifferent about politics, and that's fine. It needs to be someone that, like, the idea of sending a check to fill in the blank makes you want to vomit in your mouth. Like, that's the most abhorrent thing you could ever do. And so, but it establishes this habit, right? We're trying to get a habit in this case of creating content every single week. That's a very easy habit to slip out of. This puts that stick so hard that when the resistance of creating content comes up to you, you're like, well, I'll be damned if I'm going to send this guy a check. I'm going to create content, even if I have to stay up all night. It's the worst thing I've ever done.
Yeah, amen. That's what the main things you got to focus on, right? Yes. I got to create such a big incentive, right? That says by choosing to follow through the extreme accountability, it's less painful than not doing it. That's how this process works. Yeah, and it should make you sick. But again, if you want big changes, there's a price you're going to have to be willing to pay. And is the price you're willing to pay to go through extreme accountability, to have someone else review your practice and say, hey, look, I've been where you are. In order to get to the next level, here's what you have to do to get there. Now, if you're not willing to, then you're just not willing to grow. And that's okay. That's you. It's your practice. Knock yourself out. But stop lying to yourself. Stop lying to yourself. You're either choosing to grow and to do uncomfortable things, or you're choosing to stay the same. That's not necessarily bad, but be really clear with what it is. Because what you don't want to do is say you've been in growth mode for 5 years and you've done absolutely nothing in that 5-year period in time. That's going to cause a lot of other issues.
Yeah, the shoulds kill us, right? Like I should work harder. Yeah, I choose to work harder, I choose not to, right? Boil it down to that. Micah, another key piece of extreme accountability is that you have to have an accountability partner. If you were trying to hold yourself accountable, remember, it would have already worked. If willpower were enough in this area, we wouldn't be having this discussion. We have yet to have to work with an advisor to set up extreme accountability to come to the office dressed. Just hasn't happened, right? Great news. All the advisors we talk to are reliable for dressing themselves before they go to the office.
Showing up on time? Not always the case, but they did show up dressed.
Yeah, we had an advisor we worked with. He always came late to the office. Great news. We can solve that, right?
Like 15 to 20 to 30 minutes, though, by the way. Not like 1 minute or two late. Yeah, it was pretty late for client meetings across the board. It was pretty bad.
I thought the solution to that was pretty good. That one was a lot of fun. But you've got to have someone to hold you accountable. Shameless plug here for our Invictus Mastermind. Of course, we're meeting together with our mastermind in February in Arizona, and then again in September in conjunction with the Retirement Tax Services Tax Summit. We're really good at the extreme accountability thing because we've done it a lot ourselves. That's a great way to do it. If you're not working with us, you've got to find someone who will hold you accountable. Because again, if willpower was going to be enough here, you'd already be there.
Yeah, amen. You got to be focused on these things, right? Who's going to hold you accountable? What group are you going to work with to do that? And more importantly, it's all about taking action, Adams. And this podcast is all about taking action. So Jarvis, let's kind of go through here a couple of things, and I'll kick it off with the first one.
Please.
We've been talking about it and echoing it this entire podcast, but I just got to bring it up again. What price are you willing to pay, maybe monetary, maybe time, etc., are you willing to pay this year to make success a reality?
Yeah, and by the way, if that price doesn't hurt, if it doesn't make you cringe, then it's not the right price. If you're like, hey, I'm going to spend $10 here, that's not going to do it. If you're saying, my goodness, I don't really have that much money to spend or that much time to spend, you're getting closer. Probably still not there, but you're getting closer. Number two, who is going to guide you or keep you accountable? Trial and error is a very difficult teacher, and it doesn't often work out. Right? As our good friend Michael Henley always says, I would rather copy genius than invent mediocrity. And that's really the truth here. All of the greats learn from the other greats. Just make sure you're learning from an actual great and not a great talker.
All right. Then the other thing, this is going to come into the price a little bit as well. Yeah. What are you willing to do each day to make this happen? Now, Jarvis brought up several good things, right? And sometimes if we need to work a little harder, we need to clean up the diet. We need to clean up, how we're eating. We need to add an exercise routine, right? All of those things. But what are you willing to do every single day to make this happen? Now, one of the things that I use as a good hack for this one is I hang out with really cool, successful people. And then I'm able to talk, and even the ones that are maybe not at my success level, but are still growing, very considerably. And I can go back and I say, hey, what are you doing on a daily basis, right? And they kind of run me through their daily routine. And I'm like, wow, I missed that. Okay, I'm going to go back and start doing that. That's a great idea. And I want to hang out with those people. And I want to, again, copy genius, see what they're doing, add one thing to my list to make my day even better, to make me more effective with my time.
I love it. Last but not least, quick shout out to all of our sponsors, which are all groups that Mike and I personally use or have screened extensively. And so again, that can be a price that you're willing to pay, whether that's getting an assistant, joining the Retirement Tax Services, joining the Perfect RIA's coaching program. These things all make an incredible difference in your life. Micah, happy new year. And until our next episode, happy planning.
Happy planning.
Hey, before you leave, a quick word from our sponsors. Hey, everybody, I want you to take a quick look around your office, and on your desk, there should be the Retirement Tax Services Desktop Tax Guide. And if it's not there, or if it's not current, meaning you didn't download it in the last month, go to retirementtaxservices.com and download the Desktop Tax Guide. This is a must-have resource for every financial advisor committed to tax planning.
Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice.